They want to recreate history as we are living it, and you can get into trouble for denying this history. They have been doing this over many years, many decades. They completely control the American government. It's not just the US, it's the UK. I'm an American citizen. My tax money goes for arming Israel. You guys are British. Your tax money, it goes to Israel. When I say it's an occupation, I don't mean an occupation for Palestine, it's occupation for the world system.
I am a Riva and I was taught how to pray Salah.
That means every single time I pray,
the person who taught me gets the reward.
5 times a day, from Fajr to Isha.
If you want to support someone like me in learning Salah,
then sponsor 10 people for just £100. Remember the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, charity does not decrease wealth. Click the button and donate now.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. If you're watching this video and it's Salah time, please pause it and go pray and come back when you're done. Please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. I just saw a recent public speaking engagement Bassem Youssef did in front of a British audience of intellectuals. Bassem made some excellent points about the stronghold of Zionist lobbyists over Western politics and media, the historic use of recycled Israeli propaganda and other conflicts with different countries, predating the current genocide, the balance between boycotting pro-Israel brands as well as utilising them to benefit the Palestinian cause, and the false smear of anti-Semitism used to silence anyone that opposes the Israeli regime's relentless obsession with political violence. Let's watch the first clip.
This is not conspiracy theory, it's happening in front of us. They completely control the American government. You have the Republicans and the Democrats, they're fighting tooth and nail on abortion rights, on gun control, on climate change, on healthcare, on education. But when they come to Israel, it's like who's competing to be Israel's favorite bitch? Sorry. I don't find it in myself to either vote, and I know it's bad to say this, or to tell people to vote or not. The Zionist lobby is so strong that they would send $26 billion to Israel, and FEMA would send $100 million to the victims of the hurricane in South Carolina. That tells you everything that you need to know. That the Israeli interest is much more important than the American interest, because if you control who write the law, you have control. And I know a lot of people like, that's conspiracy, that's too much. How is a country ruled? It's ruled by a government. What is a government composed of? Individuals. If you buy enough individuals, you will control the country. It's as simple as that. AIPAC brags about the fact that 80% of the people in the House and Congress are financed by them. So why would they listen to me, a voter, while they're being financed from someone else? So this is the kind of power that you're dealing with. You're not dealing with Israel. You're dealing with Israel and a whole reserve in being the superpower of the world. Why would the superpower of the world have to compromise? I think that's the problem that we have. And I don't know what's the way out of it. It's not just the US, the UK. 13 out of 25 members of the cabinet are financed by Israeli lobbies, including the Prime Minister, the deputy, his deputy, the Chancellor, the Home Secretary, the Foreign Secretary, and the Secretary of Treasury, which they actually oversee shipping of arms. And 126 out of 355 of MPs are financed by Israeli lobbies. The Israeli lobbies have paid for 187 occasions sending those people for trips to Israel. When I say it's an occupation, I don't mean an occupation for Palestine, it's occupation for the world system. And I don't care if they tell like kind of conspiracy theories, they're already bragging about it in front of our eyes. And I'm sick and tired of when we talk about something that's right in front of our eyes, and then they tell you that you're conspiracy theorists or deranged. It's like 100% gaslighting. So that's the problem that we have. One side is too strong and one side has nothing.
As Bassem stated, it's no conspiracy that Israel controls the British and American government through buying off the majority of politicians all the way up to the US President and UK Prime Minister, which their lobby groups even brag about. To back this up, recently both Trump and Stammer have openly made public statements pledging complete allegiance to Israel. As Bassem said, it doesn't matter which party is in power because Israeli lobbyists own the Western political structure. Hence why if you're a Muslim or just someone who stands for justice and equality, it's a waste of time to fight over or or take sides with any major political party. At best, you should try to back candidates from an independent party outside the control of the lobbyists. Bassem expressed contempt at the fact that these Zionist lobbies send billions of dollars to Israel when that money could be used to improve the US or Europe. This should be enough for people to want to revolt and demand that these lobbies be registered as foreign agents and stripped of all power. But if only it was that easy. The truth of the matter is their stranglehold over the West is so deep-rooted it is near impossible to change anything. However, the first step is awareness, and if nothing else, Israel's genocide in Gaza has awakened the world to the reality of their audacious global corruption. Bassem also highlighted the fact that these same lobbyists are behind ensuring that arms shipments are sent to Israel to wreak havoc across the Middle East. This resembles a mafia movie, except it's real life, which is terrifying. Imagine you and your family lived in any of the 7 countries Israel has bombed within the last year. Nobody should have to go through that, especially not children. Let's roll the next clip.
Most of us here, like I see your faces, a lot of people that come from what is called the third world countries, what is called the global south, and we have been told all our lives that our press, that our media is propaganda, it is not honest. But I think we have found out that the beacon of democracies and the leader of free speech, like the New York Times and the CNN and whatever, they are just like better polished propaganda. But they're not even polished, they're stupid. And it's very, I think they're talking to little kids. They kept coming up with new lies and they kept coming up with new alternative history. They want to recreate history as we are living it. And they want to come at a certain point where you cannot deny that history. And you can get into trouble for denying this history. They have been doing this over many years, many decades. And it's very sad to see it happening in front of your eyes. But what can we do other than continue to talk and continue to fight against that narrative? The whole idea about they are embedded in the population, the human shields, they are doing this and they're doing that. I brought up an article from 1970, April 1970, when Israel bombed a school in the Egyptian Delta, Bahr al-Baqar. If you're Egyptian, you will know what I'm talking about. And they had 2 phantom bombers killing 30 students. And the New York Times article read like this: 30 pupils in Egypt set to die in a raid. And I told them, what raid? Who did the raid? How did they die? It's the same beautiful passive voice that we heard. We've been doing it like I've been hearing on the BBC and whatever. So you are proving that it is a long line of deceit. The New York Times didn't become liars yesterday. They've always been there. And then in the article, Moshe Dayan, the Israeli defense minister, he said, we have photographed the facility. It was a military facility. We photographed it overnight, before and after. And then it was irresponsible from the Egyptians to set aside some floors or some classrooms for children inside a military facility. So you see how creative they were. It was not like they put a military base inside the school. No, we put the school inside the military base. So when he was standing with Israel, said this, and Israel said that's like, why do I actually have to believe those people? Why do I have to believe Prime Minister goes in front of the UN and said there is a missile in every kitchen in Lebanon? That kind of propaganda has been ongoing, and it doesn't work with us anymore.
As Bassem said, the Western Zionist-run media is much more corrupt than any media outlet in the Global South, with a one-sided coverage of the genocide in Gaza favouring Israel being a prime example. Palestine serves as a litmus test for humanity by exposing who's on the side of good and who sides with evil, aka Israel. Like Bassem said, the lazy propaganda the Israelis push only works on people who have childlike intelligence, which unfortunately is a significant amount of people. However, the majority of people with even a shred of common sense see right through the BS the media is peddling. But on the flip side of that are the disgusting shills who willingly participate in spreading the misinformation despite knowing it's false just to make a quick buck. Bassem called out how the Israeli propaganda machine has relentlessly repeated slogans and labels to brainwash people into siding with them to the point of rewriting history, even going as far as criminalising and censoring anyone that dares go against their false narrative in order to silence them, which is a pattern they've followed throughout history. This makes me doubt everything ever associated with the history of Israel, Zionism and Jewish supremacy. supremacy. Bassem gave one such example when he brilliantly exposed the human shields narrative that Israelis have been using to pin the blame of them killing Palestinians on Palestinians during the current 2-year Gaza genocide we've been witnessing. When he brought up how the Israeli regime has been using the very same human shields excuse since 1970 when they bombed schools in Egypt, which again the legacy Western media were complicit in covering up like they always are. Bassem compared the ridiculousness of this Zionist propaganda to a more recent statement made by the Israeli Prime Minister and war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu, who falsely claimed there was a missile in every kitchen in Lebanon during a speech in front of the US Congress, which they all applauded for, by the way. Netanyahu is basically justifying that it's okay for Israel to bomb people's homes where they prepare meals for themselves and their families. But as Bassem said, nobody is buying this demonic rhetoric anymore unless they're literally stupid or in on it. Let's watch the next clip.
I'm actually one of the first signatories of BDS. I support BDS, and the thing is that BDS is actually directed to boycott the products and the businesses that actually have been coming out from the illegal settlement. That's actually the main, the main thing, right? But the thing is, the whole idea about the boycott, when people ask me, I say like, you do what you can. You do what you can. It's not about pushing people to the limits. Like, I'll give you an example. The people in Al Jazeera are some of the best reporters, and they have been covering the conflict in the best way possible. Somebody would say, well, Al Jazeera is in Qatar, and Qatar harbors the biggest American military base. They have no control of what their government is doing. I'm an American citizen. My tax money goes for arming Israel. You guys are British. Your tax monies, if you do, it goes to Israel. If there is like a guy who's playing in Germany, Germany is like the biggest supporter of Israel. Why do you saying that? Mohammed Salah needs to leave England. There are people, doctors and nurses and engineers that work in the United Arab Emirates, in Jordan, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia. And we know that all of these countries don't have the most best record for supporting the cause. So if you start doing this, you're not going to end. There's some of the rumors that, oh, he went to embassy as a deal for him to stop talking. I was like, did I stop talking? Did I stop producing videos? Did I stop going to the interviews? The whole idea to have your voice heard is to have exposure. As a matter of fact, when you have a greater audience and a broader audience, and they will be more encouraged to go and say what you have to say on other issues.
I'm glad Bassem addressed the topic of boycotting products, businesses and platforms that are pro-Israel, because it's a tricky subject. Like he said, we have to find a balance between boycotting brands where we can find alternatives, whilst also being smart enough to utilise pro-Israel platforms in order to use their popularity in our favour to give Palestine a voice. If we were to boycott platforms like YouTube, Instagram, X or TikTok, it would actually leave them as standalone cesspools of Zionist propaganda and in turn hinder the Palestinian cause. So I agree with Bassem that his appearances on mainstream news and other viral alternative media outlets is a net positive when it comes to countering the false narrative by getting maximum exposure for our message. As Bassem said, no matter where you live in the world, Muslim country or non-Muslim country, Israel's toxic reach spans the globe, even across Islamic nations. With the Gaza situation again exposing Muslim leaders who refuse to lift a finger to help the Palestinians, either out of fear or infiltration, or because they've been bought by the Zionist entity. Bassem was frank about the fact that as Western Muslims and non-Muslims who are pro-Palestine or just anti-war, our taxes are stolen from us and siphoned off to the Israeli war machine. But just like the Muslim countries who refuse to stand up to Israel despite the uproar from their citizens to do so, as people in the West we face the same situation. However, what we can do is work within the limits of the law in our respective countries and unite globally online in order to amp up the pressure to stop the injustice. Let's watch the last clip.
Like the whole idea about anti-Semitism, this is something that I am personally proud of, because with a few videos, I think those videos have made the serious accusation of anti-Semitism, how it's abused now, it made it a laughing stock. People now are like looking at anti-Semitism and just like, even Piers Morgan, like he said, like, what do you think of anti-Semitism? I told him, it's a fake accusation. When people ask me about like, oh my God, anti-Semitism, and I tell them, all right, of course there's anti-Semitism, but give me, how many Jewish people lost their jobs for supporting Israel? How many people in America, Jewish people, were harassed, killed, or attacked because their position in Israel? Because I can give you a whole list of pro-Palestinians who were shot, who were fired, who were cancelled because of their pro-Palestinian. So let's talk about anti-Semitism. Yes, of course, but I'm sorry, compared to what's happening to the other side, it's nothing. Right? They call everybody an anti-Semite. They call Jewish people, Jewish Voices for Peace, anti-Semite. They call any Jewish who is supporting Palestine. As a matter of fact, the only time when a tenure professor lost their tenure, was a Jewish person, and her name is Maura Finkelstein. And she lost her tenure, which never happens in the United States, because she reposted an Instagram story saying that Zionism is a racist ideology that should be shunned. A Jewish woman lost her tenure because she shared an Instagram story against Zionism. Tell me one incident about someone who's pro-Israeli who had done that. As a matter of fact, I misspoke. It is the second time. The second time was a guy called Steven Salaita in 2014 who was about to start his tenure in Indiana University. 2 weeks, and he's going to be a tenure professor. And they fired him. Why? Because in 2014, guess why? Because Israel was attacking Gaza in 2014, and he wrote against that, and he lost it. And he sued the University of Illinois, and he settled outside of court for $845,000. So when you talk about anti-Semitism, yes, it's a serious accusation, but the way it's being used, it's not serious anymore.
Bassem Youssef addressed how the accusation of anti-Semitism has been abused by the Israeli side, so much so that it no longer holds any weight. As Bassem said, it's a fake accusation. Opposing Israel killing innocent civilians and children has nothing to do with prejudice. Instead, it's simply the most humane position to take. Bassem also made a very valid point when he said there is no anti-Semitism epidemic, despite the false Israeli narrative we're being fed, and that being pro-Israel doesn't result in job losses, being cancelled, harassment, or even in some instances being killed, whereas being pro-Palestine does. Bassem was correct when he said there is no comparison. I would add that there is a major problem with anti-Islam and anti-Muslim prejudice, especially in the West, which has been funded and promoted by the Israeli regime, unlike the anti-Semitism non-issue they project onto the rest of the world. Bassem gave further examples of this anti-Semitism hoax by giving real-life case studies of anti-Zionist Jewish academics and pro-Palestinian Jewish organisations also being tarred with the false accusation of being anti-Semites, despite them being Jewish themselves. These are well-meaning and at times even religious Jewish people that have risked their livelihoods and even their lives just because they opposed Israel, which for me is clear evidence that it's Israelis that are anti-Semitic for trying to harm Jews simply because they're not Zionists. Israel has lost the PR war, and it's up to every single one of us to continue exposing them as they continue to cause chaos across the world, because we owe it to our future generations and to humanity as a whole. Thank you for watching. Make sure to join my free Telegram group via the link in the description, and remember to like, subscribe and become a channel member for access to exclusive content. Until next time, inshallah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.